Carlos Ghosn was inspired by the Tata Nano. He actually said that
Clearly, both of them need each other to sustain and survive.
Vaid was a game changer.
That has been the consistent story of Nissan. You will see a spark, and then that spark will disappear in no time.
I think Renault does have a secret sauce, and it's design. The others are not standing still. Hello and welcome to Deep Drive, our series of podcasts where we drive deep into the heart of the auto industry and the market. Now, in today's program, we're going to be talking about Renault and Nissan and the Renault-Nissan Alliance, which has made some big announcements and big plans in India. And joining me for this conversation, I have Ketan Thakkar, the editor of Autocar Professional. Ketan, good to have you here. Ketan, we were just there. Quite a big day for the Renault-Nissan Alliance, 25 years globally of the Alliance. And I think what was really significant is that we had the absolute top brass here in India. That in itself was a message. I think the fundamental message is that we aren't going anywhere. We are here to stay.
Right.
We're planning to grow. I just wanted to get, what did you make out of it?
It's reaffirming their commitment to the Indian market. Clearly, big question mark over the last few years as to what is the future of both the brands. And like you mentioned, they are here to stay. Clearly, looking at the geopolitical roadmap and the challenges that all automakers are facing world over, clearly India is a market that no one can miss. It's not gone unnoticed that India has overtaken Japan as the third largest market. Clearly, fastest growing market post-COVID, bounced back dramatically. And, it is the market which has the highest potential to grow in the future.
But still the toughest market to make money in. I think that's where all of them have been struggling. They're just not profitable. They're all bleeding. And a lot of companies have quit because of that. So sense one gets is that, they've really not managed to crack the Indian market in terms of profits. Might change now with a new portfolio. I think they were all at the bottom end where it was a high volume, low margin game.
You're absolutely right. I think that is the reason why it took them a while to define their new roadmap and the new vision. Clearly, the core of the alliance in the past was mass market portfolio to challenge Maruti Suzuki. But as the market has evolved to the next stage and the core of the market moving to 10 to 20 lakh bracket, they clearly realize that, mass market is something that is, as it is, very challenging and bleeding. And they really need to transition to the next stage. And on top of that, I think it's also got to do with the massive reshuffle that happened post Carlos Ghosn's exit, which led to decisions getting...
He was really the glue in the alliance and a big believer in India as well.
Absolutely. I mean, if not for him, we would not have probably the most integrated alliance setup in the world. The manufacturing facility is a 51-49 joint venture, which before the realignment, it was 70-30. They have a large R&D center, which almost 50% of the work is done for the global operation. Because of the core ethos of making in India and making products accessible, their approach towards localization has been phenomenal. And they've got the basic infrastructure in place. But after the infrastructure was set up, getting the products right was a big challenge, and there I'd like to get your views about where do you think they got it wrong, because I think the products is the king, and what do you think has been their evolution?
Well, I think as you said, they were focused on the mass market. I think they were inspired by Carlos Ghosn was inspired by the Tata Nano. He actually said that in an interview I'd done with him at the Paris Motor Show. In fact, we'll just run that clip for you to just hear what he said.
When Ratan came with the Nano, I told him, brilliant, I congratulate him. And he said I was the only one who congratulated him, because a lot of people said, bad idea. No, good idea. And I'm glad at the end of the day, we came with the Kwid, and the Kwid was inspired by the Nano.
So clearly a big fan of the Nano. And I think, that's inspired him to do cars like the Kwid, and obviously you had the Redigo as well. I think what went wrong is you just don't take Maruti on its own turf. I mean, to be honest, the Kwid was a game changer. It absolutely was. Design, space. In fact, it's one product that really shook Maruti. They ended up making something similar, the Espresso, which was terrible looking. But I think, to sustain that level of volume, you needed a proper dealer network. I also feel that the Kwid was on the edge. Gerard Detourbe, the father of the Kwid, an absolute genius. The father of the M0 platform, which is the Duster platform, and one of the most profitable platforms for Renault globally. You had the Duster of it, you had the Logi, which did well in other markets. In India, and unfortunately, the Duster did well. Because of the M0, you had the Logi, you had the Capture. Both of them didn't really fare that well. But clearly, it was a very efficient platform. And it was the cash cow for the company because really it was low cost, but it delivered on a lot of things and it had the K9K engine as well. But coming back to the Kwid, I think with that BR08 engine, again, NVH was high, a lot of small issues with it. And frankly, I think, in terms of service and the network, it just couldn't keep up. I think what happened with Renault is that the sales was so phenomenal. At one point, more than 10,000 cars in a month. I mean, if you remember, they crossed 10,000. Now, that is a big number. So I think it was a combination of everything. I think, honestly, even the management at that time did a super job. Sumit Sani was in charge at that point. And, really the way they positioned the Kwid. I just think as a product, it had the space. The first car to have a touchscreen, a big touchscreen. I mean, it democratized touchscreens. That's what the Kwid did. You never had touchscreens in that segment, which was the base segment. So I think clearly, the suspension, it was fantastic. The ride was brilliant. It was great for our roads. But I remember Mr. Bhargav telling me in his typical style, overconfident style, I would say, is that Hormazd, you just wait for 3 years when the cars start coming back to the service centers. And, fair enough. I think, I think overall the network, it just couldn't sustain that volume. And I think also, which is a shame, they didn't further invest more and more into the Kwid platform. I know they were looking at even a compact sedan on the Kwid. The code was LBA. Right. And for some reason, they didn't go ahead with that. That would have been a superb derivative, another variant of the platform to give them more scale. Imagine a compact sedan based on the Kwid. And that time, compact sedans did have a market, and it could have given them a lot more volume. I think, the focus wasn't there. And then, of course, after Carlos Ghosn went, I think it's no coincidence that, the focus from this market had gone. And if you look at both Renault and Nissan, they have other fires to put out. You had the whole issue with the turmoil at the top. You had COVID. You had electrification coming in a big way. And I think when this happens, you kind of start prioritizing and you kind of put, let's say you start throwing money where you can see immediate returns. I think that's the challenge for India. When you throw money, you really don't get the returns. But I think it's a very strategic market. A lot of people, and I think the smart thing to do is not only look at bottom line completely, because one day this market will explode. And as we've seen, the growth is coming into more profitable segments. And that, again, is why there is a renewed interest from a lot of global OEMs in India. Because, it's moving away from the sub-4 meter segment, which is a very unique category. It's only India specific. So you don't get global scale because those products are not really suitable for other markets. But mid-size SUVs like the Duster coming back, clearly that's a global product and there is volume for that. Again, coming a bit late into a very competitive segment. I think I'm not sure what powertrains they have. What I understand is just a petrol and 2 petrols right now, the HR10, HR13. But I think, Ketan, we asked, I think you asked Luca Di Meo, is 600 million
a little too late?
A little too little, and a little too late. And I think it was a good question. And I think the way he answers, it is what it is. It is a start. I think it was very frank. And I think what I sensed was from all three of them that there was it's going to be tough, but we are not going to shy away from it. We are committed to somehow make something work.
Absolutely. I mean, just if I could go a little back, and what I feel all these years between the alliance was a sense of inconsistency in their portfolio. And even at top management, we saw consistent change in MDs at Nissan. We started with a top-down approach when they entered India. And then after that, you saw approach to target mass market. They brought in the Datsun brand. We saw multiple changes.
Absolutely. Bringing in the Datsun brand when Nissan wasn't strong enough just wasn't going to work. Yeah.
And we saw change in products, change in strategy, bring in the confusion with the LCV with the Hinduja group. Clearly, Nissan, though it promised a lot, I think, I was there, you were also there at the rollout of the brand with Micra and Sunny. I mean, clearly, fantastic success to begin with, but they could not sustain the momentum. And that has been the consistent story of Nissan. You will see a spark, and then that spark will disappear in no time. And like you mentioned with Renault, I think they've proved it with Logan, with Duster, and with Quid, that if they get it right, they can really make a mark. My question to you is, having seen so many different phases of both the brands, the Indian market in 2024, 4 million, Maruti Suzuki at almost 2 million, Indian brands, Tata Motors, Mahindra and Mahindra coming back strongly, Hyundai, Kia, really strong competitors. What's in it for smaller brands like Renault Nissan? And the scale is a big question that I asked Luca Di Meo, but what's your view?
I think, again, I think from their point of view, I think with the volumes they are targeting, they have enough scale for that because these products are already globally developed. So they've got global scale in terms of the development costs. What they don't have scale is in terms of the localization. Need a fair amount of scale for that. But clearly, they're going to kind of support that with exports. I think, as we know, exports is going to be a big push from this. Plant is huge. I think it's 430K capacity here. That's absolutely massive. To fill that up, I think clearly they need exports. I think everyone is looking at exports right now. But in geopolitical situation right now with globalization generally under threat, that also can be a bit of a challenge. But clearly, I think they can't do it with the domestic market alone. They will look at exports. Earlier also, RHD Dusters were exported, so there is a possibility of that happening as well. But I think, Luca made a very interesting point that, you have to find the secret sauce. I think Renault does have a secret sauce, and it's design. Because if you see the successes of two of their products, the Quid and the Triber, it is fundamentally on the back of phenomenal design. Not just great design, but phenomenal design.
Right.
And really, you've got to hand it to them because just the way the Quid looked, the way it was packaged, the space, the stance, everything, it was the sheer design of the product where its appeal was lying. Same with the Triber. I mean, to have a sub 4 meter MPV with 3 rows of seating and decent space, I mean, that is actually a marvel of space efficiency. And it looks pretty good. The proportions are also good. So Renault's design really is cutting edge. And today, design is becoming more and more of a differentiator as mechanicals are kind of democratized. Everyone's having touch screens, all that sort of thing. So it's the design, the feel of it, which is, I think, going to be a factor. Looking at some of the teaser shots, I think, we've seen the Duster and the Bigster in Dacia form in Europe, but I think India is going to have a special look of its own. I think design is going to be great. I think in the SUV space, design is super important. In fact, it's half the battle won. People just like a car that has a good stance and looks good. We saw the Nissan teaser also that looks very good. I think the mechanicals is where I'm a bit worried because they don't have anything beyond turbo petrols. Same story with Volkswagen and Skoda. 2 turbo petrol options, that's it. Good engines, but just a niche. They don't have a naturally aspirated petrol, which can be on the cheaper side, a little bit more efficient. Diesel, of course, forget, they should have had, but that bus has gone.
It's harder to compete then, isn't it?
Yeah, then you're competing a very small part of the pie. And I think, as we've seen, hybrids is the talking point. Maruti and Toyota have shown everyone that this is really what the customers want while everyone's trying to shove EVs down people's throat. So I think part of the 600 million, what we hear, hybrids is not part of it. So suddenly I think there's an moment that, hey, hybrids is also there, but we haven't factored that into this investment. So this investment is going into 4 to maybe 6 products. 4 are definitely confirmed. The other 2 we don't know. There are EVs which we'll come back to. They're struggling over there a bit. But in these 4 products, you've got all the localization, the industrialization, all that investment is going into that. And I think 2 engines which are HR10 and HR13, which obviously makes a lot of sense. And hopefully that HR10 will come into the Triber, which again, Renault should have done, but they haven't done. It's going on with that old antiquated BR10, which really in terms of, quality isn't that great. It's a very budget engine. So I think the secret sauce will be designed because, it's very hard to compete on other factors. They'll have to grow the network, all that thing. So it's not going to be easy, but I think it's good to see that, they are committed. And it's going to be a tough 3 years for them. Less than 3 years. End 25, early 26 is when we'll see these mass market SUVs coming. But, I think we had discussed this earlier. The way they invest in one big bang. Then they don't manage the life cycle. They do it in fits and starts. And we've seen this happen. We've again, referencing another European car maker, which is Volkswagen Skoda. Same story. Exactly. So I think, they need that commitment. They need that appetite to slug it out in India. I think the fundamental problem is it's such a tough market to make money in that, obviously your priorities go to where, your profits are.
Clearly, you are of the two brands. You appear to be a little bit more upbeat about Renault. But help me understand about Nissan brand. It's been sort of a checkered history. Too many failures. Somehow managed to get Magnite successful. A single product company at this point.
That's right.
Something that the chairman and the CEO, the president and CEO Uchida did mention that they need to build their portfolio for India. What's in it for them? What do you think, what will be their right to win according to you?
So, again, I think why I I'm more bullish on Renault was just the fact that they have more products. They were more committed to it.
Portfolio.
Yeah, Triber, they did Nissan do an equivalent run. And right now, Magnite is the only kind of Nissan there. Honestly, at that time, CMF-A was a Renault platform. They were taking the lead on it constantly, so they had the upper hand. From what I understand now, it's going to be pretty equal. In fact, they said that, products are going to be launched almost simultaneously, a little bit like Toyota and Suzuki. So that's something that's worked really well. Differentiation is going to be much, much sharper. Just the way Magnite and Kiger are. We've seen that work well. And frankly, both have their space over there. In fact, Magnite doing a little better there, I think, because of the way it looks, more SUV looks. So, but I think Nissan also has a lot of strengths. Let's not forget they are super strong in the SUV space. I think that's something they need to leverage, getting some Halo products in. I think they're getting the X-Trail in, but from what I understand, it's not the hybrid. It's going to be a standard petrol engine. I think the hybrid has some technical challenges in high ambient conditions. That's from what I've been told by certain sources. But X-Trail coming in, I don't think it's going to make too much of an impact. If it's a CBU, it won't be priced, very competitively. But, you've got other vehicles like the Patrol and, so many other SUVs which they could bring in just to build that halo. They had a fantastic car like the GTR, which again, a big halo car. Now, from a business point of view, it doesn't do much at all. In fact, it should be seen just as a marketing expense. So they've got some fantastic products Nissan have. And, I think that in itself is enough. If you bring them in strategically, can do a lot for the Nissan brand. And engineering wise also, it's a very, very strong company. So I think, while Renault, I think, has had the upper hand, I think, with this, let's say, Alliance 2.0 or whatever we want to call it, I think the two brands will be more on an even footing. And, I think it's going to be good for the Alliance.
Is there a need for them to kind of review the brand relaunch in a way, right? When they entered, it was a top-down approach, and exactly what you mentioned, probably bring in some of the Halo models, create that sense of affinity with the young Indian buyers, and like you said, the strong heritage of SUV as well. And we have a new managing director as well in Sorabjee. So do you think, in a way, they also need to look at relaunching the brand, so to say?
Well, I think the brand is the brand. I think with new products, the brands automatically get rejuvenated. And, they've got an experienced hand like Saurav there now, and clearly, I think, they're kind of aligning, putting a lot of ducks in a row in that sense. Management, I think they want to work on the network as well. That's going to be Saurav's job. He's experienced at that. And I think then bringing and rolling out some products, creating some buzz. It's going to be a tough couple of years because you're not going to see that first SUV, which is the core of their, the core of the market, and really their first solid mass product coming out for at least till late 25, 26, as we said. They'll have to manage in between. Refreshes on the Magnite have already been done. But I think, getting in a few CBUs, I think that would certainly help. And, I think just keeping the network pumped up, I think they would have to support them. and just hanging in there until these products come. It's going to be tough because the others are not standing still. Come 25, you're going to be seeing a lot from, let's say brands like Hyundai, Kia, Maruti. We know what Maruti is doing. There's a massive product onslaught happening there. So I think the only way both Renault and Nissan can stand out is with design. And frankly, they do have an edge on design over the others looking at them. I mean, definitely they look sharper, smarter than Maruti. Hyundai, I think once had the gold standard in design, but their cars don't stand out as much as they do right now, or they do, but they still don't have that kind of, let's say, finesse of design what Renault and Nissan have. So, but they have massive variants. They carpet bomb the whole segment, and just the brute force with which they come makes it very difficult for the others to compete. But I think, again, as Luca Di Meo said, they want their small share. They're not expecting to beat Maruti. That's not their aim. And I think if they have enough scale, for a certain...
It feeds them for future.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think exports is going to be the way they supplement, let's say the scale, lack of scale in the domestic market.
One thing that I'm pretty enthused about Renault's global plans is that there is an internationalization strategy. Clearly, they are looking beyond Europe. There was a 3 billion euros plan announced in Brazil that has India as part of it. And clearly, beyond these two products, I'm really curious to know that probably, and Luca Di Meo in the past has mentioned, and even yesterday he mentioned about how we need to move away from cheap products into more profitable models. And some of the models that were showcased in Brazil, where the new internationalization strategy was unveiled, were bigger SUVs, C segment, D segment SUVs, pickup trucks. Pickup truck is lifestyle pickup truck segment probably is another space that both of these brands could look at in the future. And I'm really curious to see. And the chairman of the alliance yesterday mentioned that if one partner of the alliance benefits from a global alliance, so to say, there's a talk of Nissan and Honda working together. And if there is a pickup truck being planned by Renault, Nissan gains from it. If something planned by Nissan, then Renault gains from. So I'm really curious to see how the globalization strategy of Renault plays out. And I'm really excited to see the new Duster. But one thing that I was very curious to get to know your views of is market getting into two major extremes. The top 6 players, strong double-digit market share, and then there are players on the fringes. And there clearly it's just about ensuring that you survive and stay afloat and eventually hope to kind of come back.
Exactly. This is what's happening in the market. I've said what's happening is the strong are getting stronger and the weak are getting weaker in that sense, because really, just the structure of the market, the regulation, the compliance, frankly, at the end of the day, it's a high volume, low margin business. That's how it is. Margins are not great by global standards, not at all. People make a lot more on their exports than they do on domestic products. We've seen that even when Volkswagen was exporting to Mexico and places. That's where really, the profits and the juicy revenues came from. But I think, it is... I think even our structure of the market is not as, let's say, widespread as others. Sedan segment, dead. Compact sedan segment, we've seen what's happening. Hatchbacks, again, dying. So we're just left with SUVs, to be honest. And everyone and their uncle is coming in with SUVs. So even from a customer point of view, there's not enough choice. Everyone's jumping into one segment, which is getting a bit more crowded. So I think that's really a challenge. This whole structure is very difficult. But, having said that, and I think one thing we've not talked about is Renault-Nissan's EV strategy.
Yeah.
They didn't make any announcement on that. Sense I get is they're still struggling. If you remember, originally they said 6 products. They've just now confirmed 4 and said they're evaluating the other 2.
Right.
From what we know, they were budget EVs, which is becoming a challenge, not very feasible. I think the Dacia Spring equivalent of Renault was looking over here, but from what we understand, that may not happen. The business case is not happening. Another rumor or talk is that Nissan is looking at electrifying the Magnite with the powertrain from Dongfeng, its Chinese partner. So a lot of options over there. But clearly, Renault-Nissan struggling on the electrification front for India. It's not easy, Market also is not as great as we saw. I mean, we've seen market leaders, Tata Motors now, it's flattening out. They're in a way even struggling. We've seen all the discounts that they are. So, yeah, the EV space is, not a bed of roses as people thought it would be and quite tough. I think in a way good, they can pause and see how it evaluates. But, all manufacturers under pressure, everyone asks them, what are your EV plans? What are your EV plans?
Right.
So it's the optics that are important. But quite frankly, customers sometimes, tell you a different story.
Do you think the joker in the pack is the powertrain puzzle and something that we keep discussing often about how market leader has half a dozen options, right? From electric vehicle to hybrid to petrol to ethanol. The Hyundai and Kia and two Indian car makers, Mahindra and Tata, have diesel. And for a smaller player like them, with just petrol, it may not really rock the boat.
Absolutely. But, I think powertrain is one thing, but the way to compensate for that is multiple body styles. Because I think you make a better case for yourself with multiple body styles and the same powertrain which you can use, So, for example, if there was, I think what Stellantis or Citroen have done, with this Basalt, their new sedan.
Is interesting.
Looks interesting. I think there's a new segment over there, and they've clearly, developed multiple body styles using one powertrain, one aggregate. So that gives them a bit of scale. Yes, you do need more powertrain, but it's very, very challenging and difficult because powertrain, again, is a deep investment business. Then you end up importing it and you're not, competitive. We know that with automatic transmissions, all automatics today are imported. No one locally manufactures automatics unless it's an AMT, which is actually the locally produced manual with an automatic function piggybacking on that, So I think, powertrain is critical, but I think, having the belief and having a strategy of multiple body styles, catering to different segments, compact SUV, 7-seater SUV, right now they have two, a 5-seater and a 7-seater, but, you have to look beyond that to really get the scale, which you can then manage with just one set of powertrains.
So it'll be interesting to know what the future body styles will be, but I think clearly they need to really leverage upon their technical center. Unfortunately, we've not seen both the brands really coming out with limited edition variants or different variants in order to keep the market exciting. I think that is going to be the strategy till the time we start seeing the major big blockbuster products coming from both the brands.
Absolutely. And I think, again, just to reiterate, sometimes, your global products, if they don't align with what's, let's say, good for India, then you have a big problem. Then you have to start developing bespoke products for this market. And that's really a problem with a lot of global manufacturers, because whether it's body styles, whether it's the overall platform, the architecture can be more costly. In Europe, wagons do well, MPVs do well, that sort of thing. Can they bring that here in a cost-effective way? Now, MPVs can do well over here, but, you've got brands like Toyota and Maruti just locking out that MPV space, and very difficult for others to wiggle in unless it's very, very cost competitive. But again, that becomes a challenge to kind of make a cost competitive product here without the localization, stripping down, certain components you don't need, all that stuff which you need in very low ambience like minus 40 degrees. You don't need all. But sometimes it's more expensive to take it out, otherwise just leave it in there. There's an engineering cost to all that. And finally, it's the cost of even regulation. Calibration, meeting the norms, very, very expensive. So, I think the entry barriers to the Indian market are quite high. And, clearly you've got a handful of players which have really locked that, you're kind of guarding that high wall over there, making it very difficult for, let's say the smaller players to kind of come in and crack that.
One thing that pleased me yesterday at the conference was to see the camaraderie between the alliance. And clearly both of them need each other to sustain and survive. And after the tumultuous 3-4 years, it appears that the structure of the alliance is now finally settling down. So probably good times ahead, though challenging, but good times ahead for the alliance side.
Absolutely. And I think Ketan, we should end on that. I think we've had a long chat. I don't know how long this has gone on for, but I think good times ahead for the alliance. I mean, I would say tough times, but also good times. But clearly, I think, we saw a commitment. There is a roadmap and it's very clear, this market is too important to ignore. They've got a very strong base in terms of their technical facilities, their plant. We've seen that. And, it's clearly, something which, they want to kind of leverage more and, be a part of the India growth story.
Fantastic. Yeah, it's lovely listening to you, Hormazd.
Yeah, great chatting, and hope all of you all have enjoyed it and as much as we have chatting about it. And do keep watching our Deep Dive podcasts on our YouTube channel and on Spotify. Thanks for listening.